The year was 1939, and America was still feeling the lingering shadows of the Great Depression. The automobile industry had survived one of the toughest decades in its history, reshaping itself from pure extravagance to practicality, efficiency, and mass affordability. While Ford and Chevrolet dominated the market with their aggressive pricing and constant innovation, another player quietly revolutionized the driving experience for thousands of families: Plymouth. The 1939 Plymouth Deluxe, often overshadowed by flashier competitors, was in fact a symbol of resilience, progress, and the evolving identity of the American automobile. It was the car that brought advanced engineering and solid performance to the working class, changing the perception of what an affordable car could truly be. Plymouth, a division of Chrysler Corporation, was still relatively young at that time. Introduced in 1928, the brand had been created by Walter P. Chrysler himself as a way to reach the lower-priced market segment dominated by Ford and Chevrolet. Plymouth's strategy was simple but powerful: to provide a car with more engineering sophistication and comfort than its competitors, without a higher price tag. By 1939, this formula had matured into a remarkable product, the Plymouth Deluxe, a car that would define the brand's golden reputation for reliability and quality. The Plymouth Deluxe was available in two trim levels, the P7 Road King and the P8 Deluxe. Both shared the same rugged chassis, a robust 201 cubic inch L-head six-cylinder engine, and a level of refinement that was rare for its class. The P8 Deluxe was slightly more upscale, featuring improved trim, better interior materials, and more chrome detailing, giving it a modest yet elegant appearance. The design was transitional, a blend of Art Deco elegance from the early 1930s and the more streamlined, aerodynamic styling that would dominate the 1940s. With its sweeping fenders, slanted grille, and well-proportioned body, the Deluxe carried an understated charm that stood the test of time. Under the hood, the car was powered by Chrysler's trusted Flathead 6 engine, capable of producing 82 horsepower at 3,600 revolutions per minute. This may not sound impressive by modern standards, but in 1939 it was more than enough to provide smooth and dependable performance on both city streets and long rural roads. Plymouth engineers focused heavily on durability and balance. The engine was known for its torque and reliability, often running for decades without major issues. Mechanics across America admired the engine for its simplicity, and many found that the Plymouth six-cylinder could handle years of hard use with minimal maintenance, a vital advantage in the uncertain years leading up to World War II. Another defining feature of the Plymouth Deluxe was its engineering innovation. Chrysler had long been known for prioritizing mechanical quality over sheer appearance, and the 1939 Deluxe showcased this philosophy. It featured independent front suspension with coil springs, a technological leap in an era when many competitors still relied on rigid front axles. This design provided a smoother and more controlled ride, especially on rough or uneven surfaces. Combined with hydraulic brakes on all four wheels, the Deluxe offered handling and safety that few cars in its class could match. At a time when many affordable cars still used mechanical brakes, Plymouth's decision to use hydraulics was revolutionary. The body of the Deluxe was built on a sturdy frame that emphasized both strength and rigidity. This structural integrity was one of the reasons Plymouth cars from this period earned a reputation for lasting decades. Owners often said that the car felt solid as a rock, a statement that reflected the craftsmanship behind its construction. Inside, the cabin provided more comfort than one might expect from a modestly priced automobile. The wide bench seats, trimmed in durable fabric, were designed to accommodate 5 passengers comfortably. The dashboard featured simple but elegant instruments, with Art Deco-inspired detailing and clear gauges that made driving intuitive and modern for its time. But the 1939 Plymouth Deluxe was more than just a well-built vehicle, it was a symbol of hope and progress during a decade of struggle. In the late 1930s, America was on the verge of recovery from the Great Depression, and automobiles had once again become a symbol of freedom and upward mobility. For many middle-class families, buying a Plymouth Deluxe represented not only practicality but also a quiet statement of confidence in the future. It was affordable, reliable, and attractive, the kind of car that allowed people to travel, explore, and dream again after years of economic hardship. Advertising for the Plymouth Deluxe reflected this spirit. Chrysler's marketing campaign emphasized the car's engineering superiority and value for money. Slogans such as, "Look at all three, and you'll choose Plymouth," encouraged buyers to compare Plymouth against Ford and Chevrolet. When they did, they often found that Plymouth offered more features, smoother performance, and superior ride quality for roughly the same price. The company proudly highlighted its safety steel body, floating power engine mounts, and hydraulic brakes as hallmarks of modern design, appealing to both rational and emotional buyers. For those who wanted quality without extravagance, the Plymouth Deluxe seemed like the perfect answer. One of the most interesting aspects of the 1939 model year was how it bridged two distinct automotive eras. The design still carried the graceful curves and chrome flourishes of the 1930s, but it also hinted at the cleaner, more streamlined look that would define post-war cars. The split grille, the rounded hood, and the integrated headlights gave it a modern appearance that distinguished it from boxier earlier models. Chrysler's design team, led by the visionary engineer K.T. Keller, sought to combine practicality with beauty, a philosophy that would later influence the famous 1940s and 1950s Plymouth models. The car was offered in a wide range of body styles, from two-door and four-door sedans to convertibles and coupes. Each version was designed with attention to proportion and detail, ensuring that even the simplest model looked dignified and refined. The Deluxe convertible, in particular, was admired for its graceful lines and sense of freedom. It became a favorite among younger buyers and servicemen who would soon go off to war. For them, the Plymouth Deluxe was not just transportation but a companion for adventures, road trips, and memories that would last a lifetime. Mechanically, the car was easy to service. Plymouth provided one of the most accessible layouts in the industry, making routine maintenance tasks straightforward. This helped solidify its reputation among mechanics and owners alike. The gearbox, a 3-speed manual, was smooth and reliable, offering consistent shifting thanks to Chrysler's advanced synchronizers. Combined with the torquey flathead 6, it allowed for relaxed driving even at highway speeds, a rare characteristic for a car of its price class. Beyond the mechanics, the Plymouth Deluxe had a personality. It was modest, honest, and dependable, a reflection of the American character during a time of recovery. It didn't shout for attention, yet it delivered everything people needed and more. It became a trusted part of daily life, used by farmers, traveling salesmen, and families across the country. Its durability and resilience made it particularly popular in rural areas, where roads were often poor and maintenance facilities scarce. Owners frequently spoke of driving their Plymouths for hundreds of miles through mud, snow, and gravel without incident, a testament to the car's solid construction. When the clouds of war began to darken over Europe in 1939, Plymouth's engineering excellence would soon serve another purpose. Many of the design and production techniques refined in the Deluxe were later applied to military vehicles during World War II. Chrysler became one of the major contributors to the American war effort, producing tanks, trucks, and engines. The knowledge gained from building strong, efficient passenger cars translated directly into military reliability. In a sense, the Plymouth Deluxe was not only a car of its time but also a foundation for the machines that would help shape the world's future. Despite its success, the Plymouth Deluxe never gained the same level of fame as the Ford Deluxe or Chevrolet Master Deluxe of the same era. This was partly due to Plymouth's quiet, understated branding and partly because its buyers were often practical people, not interested in luxury or flashiness. Yet, in terms of performance, comfort, and engineering, the 1939 Deluxe was arguably the superior car. It consistently ranked third in U.S. sales, just behind Ford and Chevrolet, a remarkable achievement for a company barely a decade old. It represented Chrysler's steady rise to prominence in the American automotive hierarchy. As years passed, the 1939 Plymouth Deluxe became one of those cars that quietly disappeared from the spotlight. After World War II, the automotive landscape changed rapidly. Sleeker, more powerful post-war models took over, and pre-war cars were soon considered outdated relics. Many Plymouth Deluxe sedans were used until they wore out, often serving as second-hand cars for working-class families or even as farm vehicles. Few were preserved, and as a result, finding a well-maintained example today is increasingly rare. But for those who do restore or collect them, the Deluxe holds a special place, a car that embodies craftsmanship, honesty, and the spirit of endurance. It's worth noting that the 1939 model year was the last before major wartime changes swept through the automobile industry. Production for civilian cars would soon be interrupted, and resources shifted to military needs. Thus, the 1939 Deluxe stands as a symbol of the last great American cars of peace before the global conflict changed everything. Many of these cars would later serve soldiers and civilians alike during the early 1940s, often repurposed for wartime use. In small towns across America, they became makeshift ambulances, delivery vehicles, and even training cars for soldiers learning mechanics before deployment. The Plymouth Deluxe also found international appeal. Chrysler exported models to Canada, Latin America, and even parts of Europe, where they were appreciated for their reliability and simplicity. In South America, for instance, the Deluxe became a symbol of American technology, admired for its ability to withstand harsh conditions and poor roads. Mechanics in Argentina and Brazil would often marvel at its robust suspension and forgiving engine, calling it the car that never complains. In the United States, meanwhile, the car became a witness to countless personal stories. Families took their first vacations in it, young couples went on their first dates, and servicemen drove them to train stations before leaving for war. It was a car that quietly stood beside Americans in both joy and hardship, a silent companion through a defining era of history. The Plymouth Deluxe of 1939 may not have had the flash of a Cadillac or the fame of a Ford, but it had something more profound: character. It was built with integrity, designed with intelligence, and driven with pride. And though many have forgotten its name, its influence lives on in the DNA of modern Chrysler engineering. Every smooth suspension, every quiet engine mount, and every focus on affordable quality owes a debt to cars like the Plymouth Deluxe. As the 1940s dawned and America prepared for an uncertain future, the Plymouth Deluxe of 1939 remained a trusted companion on the roads. It was more than transportation, it was part of daily life, the car that got families to church on Sunday, hauled groceries from the market, and took children to school along dusty rural roads. For many, it was the first car they ever owned, and it represented a step toward independence. Unlike luxury cars that symbolized wealth or status, the Plymouth Deluxe symbolized stability, work ethic, and modest pride. Driving one was a satisfying experience, not because of speed or power, but because of the sense of balance it offered. The car handled predictably and felt planted to the ground, giving drivers confidence even on unpaved country roads. The independent front suspension softened the bumps of rural America's often crude infrastructure, and the hydraulic brakes provided reliable stopping power, something drivers didn't take for granted in that era. Plymouth owners often described the car as honest. It didn't pretend to be anything it wasn't, yet it delivered more than anyone expected. For many mechanics and engineers, the Deluxe was a lesson in simplicity done right. Every mechanical system, from the clutch linkage to the carburetor, was easy to understand and service. The 201 cubic inch flathead six-cylinder engine became legendary for its ruggedness. In countless small towns, stories circulated of Plymouth engines running hundreds of thousands of miles without a rebuild. Even during wartime, when spare parts were scarce, many of these cars kept running thanks to the ingenuity of their owners and the strength of their original design. Farmers used them to tow small loads, taxi drivers used them for long shifts in city streets, and soldiers' families used them as their connection to the outside world. Inside the cabin, the Plymouth Deluxe represented a blend of simplicity and elegance that defined the late 1930s. The dashboard featured symmetrical Art Deco styling, with soft lines and clear analog dials that illuminated at night in a gentle amber glow. The speedometer sat proudly at the center, surrounded by gauges for fuel, oil pressure, and temperature. The steering wheel was large and sturdy, requiring effort but providing a reassuring tactile connection to the road. The materials were carefully chosen for durability rather than luxury: thick fabric upholstery, polished metal trim, and a painted dashboard surface that resisted wear. Despite the lack of air conditioning or power accessories, passengers found the car surprisingly comfortable. Vent windows allowed for air circulation, and the large cabin made long journeys manageable. The trunk space was generous for its time, designed with practicality in mind. Every inch of the car served a purpose. That utilitarian philosophy was part of what endeared Plymouth to the American public. it offered quality where it mattered, not where it merely looked impressive. Plymouth's designers also paid close attention to proportions and balance. The wheelbase of 114 inches gave the Deluxe a stable stance, while its 3,000-pound curb weight contributed to a smooth and grounded feel. This solid construction made the car particularly safe for its era, an era long before seat belts or crumple zones. The steel body and reinforced frame absorbed impacts far better than lighter competitors, and many early reports of accidents praised the Plymouth's ability to protect its occupants. In a time when automotive safety was rarely discussed, Plymouth quietly set higher standards. The design language of the 1939 Deluxe also captured a unique moment in time, a farewell to the ornate excess of the early 1930s and a preview of the streamlined modernism to come. Its body lines flowed naturally from front to rear, creating an impression of motion even at rest. The grille, with its thin vertical bars and chrome frame, became a recognizable trademark. The headlights were fully integrated into the fenders, a new trend that gave the car a sleeker appearance. Compared to the angular shapes of earlier models, the 1939 Plymouth looked modern, confident, and purposeful, a sign that America was moving forward again. In the advertising of the time, Chrysler's marketing department emphasized these qualities with precision. They described the Deluxe as America's value leader, highlighting its advanced features, safety, and comfort. But the emotional appeal ran deeper. The ads often depicted families traveling together, couples parking by scenic overlooks, or young men proudly washing their Plymouths in front of modest suburban homes. The message was clear: this was the car for real Americans, built for real lives. And in that, the Plymouth Deluxe became not just a machine, but a piece of national identity. When war finally broke out and the U.S. entered the conflict in 1941, many Plymouth Deluxe cars found new purpose. Their engines and chassis were adapted for military use, and countless civilian models were requisitioned for government or Red Cross service. Mechanics who had worked on Plymouths in peacetime suddenly found themselves maintaining tanks, trucks, and Jeeps built with similar principles. The Plymouth engineering DNA, robust, functional, and precise, became a silent ally in the war effort. Soldiers returning home often remembered their pre-war Plymouths fondly, associating them with a simpler time before the world changed forever. After the war, America's economy and culture transformed dramatically. The focus shifted to speed, style, and modern luxury. The returning veterans, now young families with growing aspirations, wanted new designs that symbolized progress. Automakers responded with sleek, futuristic cars that made pre-war models look old-fashioned overnight. In this rush toward modernity, the humble Plymouth Deluxe faded quietly into history. Many were scrapped for metal during the war, and those that survived were sold second-hand to families who used them until the end of their mechanical life. But for those who remembered the 1930s and early 1940s, the Plymouth Deluxe never lost its charm. It was a reminder of perseverance, a symbol of an America that had endured hardship with grace and determination. Collectors today who restore these vehicles often speak of them not just as cars, but as historical witnesses. Every dent, every faded badge, every crack in the steering wheel tells a story of survival. To sit behind its wheel is to touch a piece of history, to feel the craftsmanship of an era when cars were built to last and meant to serve. In the modern collector market, the 1939 Plymouth Deluxe has become something of a hidden gem. It lacks the flamboyant styling of a Cadillac or the cultural fame of a Ford, but for enthusiasts who appreciate mechanical honesty, it offers immense satisfaction. Restorers admire its straightforward engineering. The Flathead 6 is easy to rebuild, the chassis is sturdy, and parts are still relatively accessible thanks to Chrysler's consistent design philosophy during the 1930s and 1940s. A well-maintained Plymouth Deluxe delivers a driving experience that feels surprisingly contemporary, smooth, quiet, and composed. It is the kind of car that reminds drivers that refinement doesn't always require extravagance. Collectors also appreciate the Deluxe for its understated elegance. The restrained chrome, the flowing lines, and the balanced proportions give it a timeless quality. Some restorers choose to maintain complete originality, keeping the car in its period-correct state with factory colors like gunmetal gray or yacht blue. Others choose tasteful restomods, equipping the car with hidden modern features while preserving its external charm. Either way, the result is the same, a car that still commands respect more than 8 decades after it was built. Beyond aesthetics and mechanics, the legacy of the 1939 Plymouth Deluxe lies in what it represented. It was a car born from one of the hardest decades in American history, the Depression years, yet it embodied optimism and ingenuity. It proved that quality engineering and affordability could coexist. It reminded people that progress wasn't only about luxury or excess, it was about doing things better, smarter, and fairer. That spirit became a cornerstone of Chrysler's identity and influenced generations of cars that followed. In many ways, the Plymouth Deluxe was the quiet architect of Chrysler's long-term success. By the time the 1939 model rolled off the assembly line, Plymouth had already secured its position as America's third best-selling brand, an incredible achievement in less than a decade. The profits and reputation gained from these cars allowed Chrysler to expand its technological research, leading to innovations in suspension, braking, and powertrain design that benefited not just Plymouth, but Dodge, DeSoto, and Chrysler itself. The Deluxe had proven that great engineering at an honest price could win loyalty, a lesson that remains true in the automotive world even today. Culturally, the Plymouth Deluxe captured the emotional essence of the 1930s, a time when people learned to value resilience over extravagance. Its story mirrors that of countless Americans who worked hard, saved what they could, and dreamed of better days. While Hollywood stars drove Packards and Lincolns, the everyday heroes, the teachers, factory workers, farmers, and small business owners, drove Plymouths. And it was these people who built the foundation of the American dream. In that sense, the 1939 Deluxe wasn't just a car, it was a reflection of the nation's soul. Today, when one encounters a surviving Plymouth Deluxe, often resting quietly in a barn or displayed proudly at a classic car show, it commands a particular kind of respect. It may not attract the largest crowds, but those who know its story pause to admire its integrity. The gentle curve of its fenders, the dignified grille, and the hum of its flathead engine carry echoes of a bygone world, one where craftsmanship mattered, and cars were built to serve, not merely to impress. Restoration of such a vehicle is not merely a mechanical process but a cultural act, an effort to preserve the tangible memory of an era when America was redefining itself. Restorers often describe the moment they first start the engine after years of silence, the distinctive thrum of the flathead six filling the air like a heartbeat revived from history. In that moment, they are connected not just to the car, but to the people who built it, the families who drove it, and the world it once traversed. In retrospect, calling the Plymouth Deluxe forgotten might seem unfair, but in a sense, it's accurate. The car never sought glory, never dominated headlines, and never became an icon of popular culture. Yet its influence is woven into the DNA of countless vehicles that came after. Every dependable family sedan, every affordable car that balances comfort and durability, carries a piece of the Plymouth philosophy. It may not sit in the spotlight, but its shadow stretches across the entire automotive world. The 1930s were an era of transformation, in technology, society, and spirit. And amid that transformation, the Plymouth Deluxe stood as a quiet revolutionary. It democratized engineering, brought safety and comfort to the masses, and changed what people expected from an affordable car. While others chased style, Plymouth built substance. And that, perhaps, is why it still resonates with those who value authenticity over flash. Looking back now, over 8 decades later, the 1939 Plymouth Deluxe remains a lesson in balance, between cost and quality, form and function, progress and tradition. It reminds us that innovation doesn't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes, it hums softly under the hood of a car built for ordinary people living extraordinary times. And as the world continues to chase speed, luxury, and complexity, there's something profoundly moving about the simplicity of that old Plymouth. It stands as a reminder that true greatness often lies not in being remembered by everyone, but in quietly changing the lives of those who depended on you. In the dust of time, the Plymouth Deluxe may be a forgotten car, but it is not an insignificant one. It was the car that changed what the 1930s meant for millions, turning struggle into motion, and hope into steel on wheels.